Hello and welcome to the Mike's DIY Tips channel on YouTube. I'm Mike, and in this video I'd like to show you how to make a simple storage unit for your garden seat cushions. As you can see, we've got two apertures, each is holding two cushions. If you wanted to store more cushions, then you'd need to put an extra aperture or make the unit a little bit deeper. At the very end, it also houses the rolled up patio umbrella. The cushions are held in place with a single strand of flexible curtain wire. All of the outside frame is made from 9mm plywood. All of the 6 corners, top and bottom, are fixed together with these precision made plastic fixing blocks. The middle shelf is a bit thicker, it's 18mm chipboard, which enables us to screw straight through the sides without using the fixing block. A piece of curtain wire running up under tension to secure the cushions. Over here, the aperture for the umbrella, there's a hole in the top because the umbrella is taller than this cabinet, so it pokes through and it's held in place again by a piece of tensioned curtain wire. It's secured to the wall at the top with mirror plates like this, and at the bottom mirror plates like this. So now I'm going to do a series of demonstrations on how to do the corner, how to do this type of joint, how to secure the curtain wire at the top and bottom, and how to cut out the aperture. I'll show you 2 ways of doing that depending what tools you've got. So I'm going to demonstrate then putting one of these corner joints together using these precision made plastic jointing blocks. What we need to do is to draw a line on there, 9mm in from the edge, representing the thickness of the plywood. I've fixed one block, and let's just show you how we do it. Position the block where you want it on the line. I can just see the line showing. You don't want to cover the line. And then with a sharp pencil, mark like that. Now you probably can't see, but there are 2 small circles there representing the holes in those blocks. So with a sharp pointed bradawl, if you've got one, carefully position the point exactly in the centre of the circle and push down. Same with that one. Now, you may not have a pointed bradawl, but I can assure you that is a very, very useful tool to have. You could use a round pointed masonry nail instead. Just need to put it in the centre of the circle and tap with a hammer. We're not trying to put the nail right through the board because we want to leave the plywood intact for the screw to bite into. Now a word about suitable screws. We know that we're fixing into 9mm plywood, and we want a screw that will be long enough to screw into the plywood but will not come right through and leave a nasty jagged point on the other side. Now that screw that I've got there is a 6x1/2 inch. That's the imperial size reference. In metric it's a 3.5mm by 12mm long, and it doesn't really quite go into the plywood enough because the head is so fat it doesn't sit exactly down into the countersunk recess of the plastic block. So I found that the more slender screw, and this one is a 4 by ½ inch, or in metric it's a 3mm by 12mm. That goes into the plywood just that little bit more to give us a better grip. So that's the type of screw I'm going to use. So we need to just get the point of the screw into the recess that we made. Now it would be very easy to over tighten those screws, especially using a power screwdriver, so a little bit of care is required just to screw them in enough to secure the block. Having done that, we can now position the two pieces of plywood together, and whilst holding them like that, we need to carefully mark in the holes. And again, with the point, just make an indent for the screws to get a good start in the correct position. Because of the bulk of the power screwdriver that I'm using, I've put an extension piece on there so that it gives me a better chance to screw in the screw in the vertical and not at a big angle like that. So there's 2 screws in, but as you can see, we've got quite a decent joint. And now we're going to look at how to fix the intermediate shelf where we're going to screw through from the side. I'm proposing to use a 6 by 1½ inch screw, which in metric would be 3.5 by 40mm, and that would give us a good 25mm or 1 inch into the shelf for a secure fixing. We need to mark out where to drill the holes for the screw. So in the side piece I've already marked 2 lines representing the thickness of the shelf and the exact position where we want it. I've then extended those 2 lines on the edge like that. I've then by eye guessed where the middle point is between those 2 lines, and then I'm going to draw a line along there which will be the centre line of the 2 screws required. So there's my centre line, and I can mark screw hole positions there like that. I'm just doing it by eye, not bothering to measure with a ruler. Now to suit the 3.5mm screw, I'm going to drill a pilot hole only in this side. You'll see why in a minute. And the pilot hole has to be less than the screw thickness, so I've chosen 3. You don't want the pilot hole any more than 3mm for a 3.5mm screw. You could also use a 2.5mm. So now I'm going to drill those holes. So now we can hold the shelf up to there like that. This is where you could do with a second person to help you. So I've got to line up those like that, and I'm going to drill through those holes that I've just drilled. So now we know where the 2 holes are there. Now we need to enlarge these holes so that the screw will pass through comfortably. So it's a 3.5mm screw, so I'm going to use a 4mm drill now. Now we need to countersink those holes, and of course we do it on the outside, not on the inside. So there we are, we've got the shelf in position now. So now I'm going to demonstrate cutting out the hole in the top piece of the unit where the umbrella will poke up. So I'm going to cut half of it with an electric jigsaw and the other half with a handsaw. So with the handsaw we can't saw round curves, but what we can do slits. So I've quickly cut some slits down there with the handsaw. Now I'm going to cut across and across to eliminate this scrap plywood here. Then we'll deal with the curve. So as you can see, I'm eliminating this cutout here. I'm just going to cut down here, and that enables me to take that out. Now I can get an angle on here. I should mention it's a job where you need to be patient and not try and rush it or force the saw, because if you try and force the saw you could damage the material, break it off or hurt yourself. I'm cutting carefully up to the line now, keeping the saw vertical. So that's about as far as I can go with the handsaw. So now we need to use an alternative tool. One method would be to use a half round file and just keep working on the shape like that. An even more effective way is to use a glass bottle and some coarse sandpaper. I didn't quite finish, but at least you get the idea. And now we come to the task of fitting the curtain wire across this opening for the umbrella. The idea is to secure the curtain wire at each end, leaving it pretty taut across the opening. So I need to explain that the curtain wire is actually just a tightly wound wire spring, and I want a little loop on the end. So I'm going to show you on a much bigger scale. If you imagine that this is the curtain wire and I want a loop like that, because I want to be able to put something through there like that when the curtain wire is under tension pulling downwards, to stop it pulling right through. So in reality this curtain wire is much tinier, so we need to take the bit of plastic off the end with a sharp knife to expose the curtain wire. Now the curtain wire is still just wound very tightly. I want to split a couple of those coils to turn them outwards, and I'm going to do it with the cutting part of the pliers. So if I engage that there, just squeeze gently. I'm not trying to cut the curtain wire off, I'm just trying to separate a couple of the coils, and there we are. I need to be able to get a little moulding pin through like that. So you can see the idea. I've used a little moulding pin which is just the right diameter to go through the little loop in the end of the curtain wire. So now we need to thread the other end of the curtain wire through. So what I'm doing now, I'm just pulling the curtain wire a little bit tight to get some tension there, and then I'm going to put the pliers on there and cut it off. So I've cut the curtain wire off, and I'm hoping that when I've secured that the same as that one, nice and stretched across. So there we are then, the curtain wire is through and fastened at both ends. If you haven't got a moulding pin, a panel pin is actually a bit thicker and you probably find it won't go through the loop of the curtain wire, so you need a moulding pin. Now if you haven't got any moulding pins, you can use a piece of paper clip. So use the same method for the other vertical curtain wire that goes down across the two cushion apertures. Now you could argue that those little moulding pins could work their way out over time and the curtain wire could come adrift. Fair enough. If you're going to paint the finished job, then a couple of coats of paint on those moulding pins will make sure that they're very firmly kept in place. If you're not going to paint, use some glue. Just put some glue along there and let the glue go hard overnight. If you want faster results, you could use rapid hardening epoxy resin glue, and then that will be hard within about 20 minutes. So there you are then, that's how I made my storage unit for our garden seat cushions. You may choose to use different materials, perhaps thicker plywood or MDF or veneered chipboard. I'd recommend that you didn't use rough chipboard. Even if you're going to paint it, it still looks rough. Anyway, if you like my videos and you feel that you'd like to subscribe in order to get automatic notification when future videos are launched, just click on the circular icon appearing on screen now on the left. Alternatively, you can view some of my other related videos by choosing and clicking one of the rectangular icons appearing on screen now. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll join us again very soon.